We're here today because we know that American workers and American companies are on the front lines of this competition with the Chinese Communist Party. And in some ways, nobody's been hit harder by the predatory practices of the CCP than hardworking men and women in the industrial Midwest. And for too long, we've ignored the CCP's blatant violation of trade agreements, its intellectual property theft, its economic coercion that have disadvantaged American workers and not allowed us to compete on a level playing field. So today, we came to Detroit to meet with Ford and GM, two American-made titans of the automotive industry, and a number of auto suppliers to grapple with this question of how can we put American workers on a level playing field where they can compete. And I believe if they have that level playing field, they can outcompete and outwork anybody.
As we broach this topic of how to compete effectively in an ever-changing global marketplace, and particularly with the adversarial Chinese Communist Party, we have got to be thinking about the needs of our auto industry, both large and small. We salute the hardworking men and women who are in those factories, who are doing the work and making those products. And we are competing on an innovation global platform with autonomous vehicle technology, electric vehicle batteries, and on. We are in a race for access to minerals and key materials that are going into our auto industry.
Our American workers, our Michigan workers can compete with anybody, but we want to make sure there's a level playing field. And that was very apparent where we need to be mindful of the barriers that China puts up, the Chinese Communist Party, and make sure that we are not putting our workers, our businesses at a disadvantage. And quite frankly, it's been happening for a number of years.
We in government can do more to make sure there's a level playing field, even as our businesses and others are trying to compete. So, for instance, in the battery space, it's obvious right now that China has a chokehold with regard to certain key elements of the battery supply chain. They control 90% of the processing of critical minerals. Think about that. Even minerals that are mined in the United States are sent to China to be processed and then to be brought back to be inserted into batteries. How did this happen? We can't let this problem fester.
I mean, we recognize that we're not going to agree on everything, right? I mean, we have different views about the CHIPS Act, about the IRA, about industrial policy, but notwithstanding that, we do trips like this and we kind of jump right into a complex problem like how do you wean yourself off of an economic dependency from China? How do you balance environmental concerns with wanting to win economically in order to identify, okay, what are the areas where in divided government we can still get stuff done?